Call puzzle?
Yeah. You got your mic on? At this time, we will call the September the 25th, 2025 zoning board adjustment to order. If you would, please stand as we have the invocation followed by the pledge of allegiance. Charlie, if you would give the invocation for us.
Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to live in this great nation, in this great county. Please watch over us and guide us here tonight to do what's best for our citizens and our county. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Do appreciate the board members that's here tonight. We have 5 out of 7. Miss Margaret went home sick. Chris called, was not with us. We do appreciate Mr. Dice, our attorney, being here. We especially appreciate our law enforcement for being on our right side to make sure everybody behaves. We think Karen is not with us, but we do have Melissa. Is that correct? Then you're going to be the backup. Is that correct? So we do appreciate you, and we'll try our best to break you in correctly. We appreciate Bob and all the staff of the planning department, along with Stephen and Ms. Brooke and Ms. Roseanne. It's good to have y'all here. We appreciate everyone here tonight. Mr. Bob, you want to come up and let's get started with number 1? Pardon me?
Swear in.
It's been a while. We ask that everyone here tonight that plans to speak before this board, please stand and raise your right hand and swear that the testimony you give be the truth.
Do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God? Thank you.
Do we trust lawyers? Do we swear them in twice?
I don't know who, you can make us swear all day.
This is Go ahead, Mr. Bob.
Mr. Chair,
Hang on a minute, Bob. Do we have any announcements need to be made?
Not on the legal front, no, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Mr. Chair, the first project, I believe his last name pronounced Variance, is a request to continue to the October 23rd, 2025 PA meeting. He failed to notify, so we'll have that rescheduled for the 23rd if you would please.
Make a motion.
Make a motion to continue the Zalata.
Second.
To the,
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
aye.
Thank you, Chair. May we move number 2 down to number 3 and 3 to 1, 2? There's, I guess, a severe accident to spot traffic. Roseanne will present that one.
Yes. Before we get started, we do have 5 members. It takes 4 out of the 5. Does the items that's on the agenda tonight, do y'all want us to hear it? Do y'all want to postpone it? You want to hear it, Mark?
Yes, sir, we're good.
Come on up and present your case.
Good evening. Mark Davis, Clark Party report on behalf of triple or double A auto salvage and storage owned by the Runge. This is a little bit of an unusual proceeding for the Board of Adjustment. This is a special use permit.
Microphone.
So, is that better? Yeah, there we go. It's a special use permit application. My clients, as you may or may not know, own a salvage yard up on 1083 in Mossy Head area, 1087, I said 3, on the Mossy Head area. They have purchased some property due north of their current operation. The only thing they want to do with this property is temporarily store vehicles, and then move those vehicles to their crushing and processing unit there on the property they currently own. It's contiguous property. So We actually went through a rezoning process with the county and through staff to convert that property from residential to heavy industrial, which was the only land use category that was available to us to do what we were planning to do today, which is simply store these vehicles on the property. There was some understandable angst, for lack of a better word, to change it from residential to heavy industrial, because heavy industrial uses allow a lot of other uses other than just storing these vehicles. For instance, a heavy industrial use could be a manufacturing facility or something along those lines, which would not be, obviously, compatible with the residents across the street or in a rural area of where this property is located. So the staff and quite frankly, the county commissioners, when we had the meeting with them, suggested that we go through the special use permit process. Now, I was talking to staff earlier, it is unusual. It's not a rezoning. It does not necessarily, and I know Hayward would love to correct me whenever I say something crazy or incorrect. It does not necessarily run with the land. By that, I mean, if there's ever a violation of any of the conditions of the special use permit, the staff and the county can revoke the permit. It's not one of those things where it's just there forever. It's actually, I like the term license better than permit. It's really like a license that's subject to conditions. And the conditions have been agreed to, have been placed in the staff analysis. One of which, of course, is that it will be properly fenced, properly buffered, and the staff analysis does indicate that we've met all the conditions and requirements of a special use permit for this property. There is going to be opposition, quite frankly. We've known that. It has been from day one, but we have done everything we possibly humanly do to minimize any disturbance to anyone else in the area. Again, all we're talking about doing with this property and all the special permit would allow would be for us to store vehicles temporarily, not forever. They're going to be coming and going off that property, okay? So you have any questions, I'll be more than, oh, and by the way, the code also has another little quirk in it, in that you guys simply make a recommendation. The final decision, you kind of act like the planning commission would act on a development order. You make a recommendation, have a public hearing, make a recommendation. Ultimately, the Board of County Commissioners has a final decision. It's a little oddity in the way the code is currently written.
When you say that they're going to store vehicles,
Mhm.
this is a conditional, is this a special exception permit application? That's what you're asking for, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's gonna,
I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, you're right. It's not a conditional use. That's something
right, it's
completely
not a
different.
conditional, it's a
Correct.
special exception permit
Correct.
application.
Correct.
By doing so, we are going to allow them to take a piece of property and store, just store vehicles, wrecked vehicles.
Correct.
They're gonna store it for a period of time, for an unlimited period of time.
It can't be unlimited. It can't be forever, because they're going to move that vehicle on the property. They're going to move it off the property to either be stripped and crushed.
But they're gonna take and continue to store vehicles
Oh,
there.
absolutely. There will be vehicles stored. It won't be the same vehicles, but there will be
Right.
vehicles stored. Correct.
They're not in the record business, they're into buying vehicles.
Correct.
So what they're gonna do, they're gonna buy vehicles, they're gonna store it on this 5 acres that's north of their property, and then they're gonna crush it on the property that they now own.
Correct.
They're gonna put a fence around it so the neighbors cannot see it, is that
Absolutely.
correct? There will
Yes.
not be a noise to that, is that correct?
That is correct.
There will be no other garbage there, there'll be no other, I think they buy other type of, metal.
Washing machines.
Washing machine, none of that. This is, and we're gonna put that in the language, is
That's
that
correct.
correct?
That's be part of the special exception permit.
Any
Correct.
questions at this point?
Well, I also saw there was a pretty significant landscape buffer that was shown on the drawings to, I guess, minimize some of the visual and noise impact.
Exactly. Yes, sir. And that's,
We can
again,
get- we
part of
can
the
get with
permit.
the Planning to do that.
exception.
Well, it's on the drawings that's in the packet.
Yeah, but we're gonna get them to come up in
Okay.
the county.
So I guess one of the questions that I had was if they're not going to be using this land to crush the cars, most of the letters that expressed opposition seem to assume that this would be to enlarge the crushing operation onto this property.
We're using the same number of hours of operation. And that's in the application and in the staff report. So
We're gonna stipulate what they can do.
Right, I'm just saying that when I read the letters, they all had concerns about the crushing noises and the operation that's already there
Correct.
being expanded onto this property. And so if they're not gonna be moving that kind of equipment onto this property, then a lot of those concerns expressed seem to have been mitigated already by
the applicant is only seeking to store the vehicles, move them off that part to where they currently are now for their operation.
And we're gonna put that in our condition.
Yes.
And if they violate it, there'd be a code violation.
Correct, and it could
That
be,
would take a null and void condition, and we can
Correct.
put that language in there.
and that would allow for the revocation of the special use exception, yes, sir.
So like if they, they're gonna store them over there, like, and then like if they wanna crush one of them vehicles, they'll just go over there and get it with a machine and
Correct,
take it over there and crush it on their yard where they do it now.
correct. That's correct. Could there be more crushing because there's more room for
Yeah.
vehicles? Sure, but they're not expanding the actual crushing facility.
right.
Thank you, Mark. We'll give you a chance to come back up.
Thank you, gentlemen, thank you.
Ms. Edwards?
I will go ahead and read the blurb and enter that along with the staff report into the record, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
It's the AA Auto Salvage and Storage. It's a request to approve by final order. It's project number MAJ 23-100003. This is a major development application submitted by Clark Partington on behalf of the owners, requesting a special exception permit for the operation of a salvage yard on 5.18 plus or minus acres. Project site has a future land use of rural residential and a zoning category of rural village. The property is in District 3, located at 542 County Highway 1087, and identified by the parcel number in your staff report, if you don't mind entering that into the record.
So entered.
Also, if you don't mind entering in the public comment that was provided to you.
You want to read that into the record? Or mention it? You talking about the one that you provided us?
Yes, there was one public comment that was received after the staff report, but before the cutoff time, that appears to be some of the same concerns that were previously submitted as public comment.
That's the one that-
Operation 24/7 and noise.
So
That was-
entered.
Thank you. This is an application for a special exception. It is just that. It is a special scenario, kind of like a conditional use, but we're just talking about one specific use. And these are allowed in certain zoning categories for heavy industrial uses, and rural village being one of those. So rather than allowing the parcel to rezone and open the floodgates for all heavy industrial uses, they are tying this special exception to one heavy industrial use, and that is the salvage and recycling center for storage of the vehicles. They are required annual permitting, so that we see that they're still in compliance with that special exception. Not go through the whole process again, but just to monitor the operation every year, once a year. So that's where it kind of falls in a license per se, as Mark Davis was suggesting.
How will that, who will oversee that? For the planning
The
department?
planning department is to oversee that.
And
it-
there will be accounting of that, a
There,
record of it?
there should be, and we don't see a lot of these, to be honest with you, but I anticipate that'll be keeping with their development order and the operation of what was approved with that development order. There were compatibility measures that were implemented in a community meeting that was required.
Members of the public could make accusations or bring allegations that they were violating it, and it would be investigated by the county.
Right, just like any other code violation.
violation.
It would be investigated at that point, I assume.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
We may have you come back up.
Okay.
We're gonna listen from the audience right now.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Who's here would like to speak on behalf of this? Somebody stand up. Okay, we don't have nobody want to speak on it tonight. Come out, state your name for the record.
My name is Rebecca Smith. I live at 103 Jefferson Lane. I've lived there since 2005, and the business that they currently have, as I've said in the past, has greatly affected our neighborhood in a number of different ways. And my concern is this additional 5 acres that they've acquired. It literally is directly across the street from Jefferson Lane. And in what they currently, the business that they currently have and are running, like I said, greatly affects our neighborhood in a number of different ways. So my concern is this additional 5 acres, just, you know, having even more of an effect on our neighborhood in a number of different ways. My concern is in the past, there have been promises made by the owners of that parcel, and it's almost like promises made and then not kept, and then it's asking for forgiveness later, which is a great concern. I had sent a letter in for the last meeting that was scheduled on August 25th. I was out of state at that time, but I wanted to make sure that my voice and my concerns were made known. We've been fighting this battle for our neighborhood for a very long time, and you know, not to disrespect anyone, but I just firmly feel as though our concerns for our neighborhood are not really taking into consideration. You know, as was said by the previous people at the podium, you know, it's that area has been zoned as rural residential, and so I don't understand why, you know, that has changed. I know that back in 2018, that parcel that they had then by the county had been zoned as what is it? Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you, heavy industrial. And that in and of itself, as I said, has greatly affected our neighborhood. Not only the noise, but also just the crushing of the vehicles. And, you know, I take my puppy out back to go potty, and you can see, you know, a plume of smoke or you know, particles in the air, and it's literally only just a few minutes later that I can feel that in my lungs. I'm not a smoker. I was a previous smoker. I quit in 1992, and so it is definitely has an effect on my lungs, and I'm sure on those also in the neighborhood. So, you know, promises have been made that certain things were going to, you know, pan out this way or that way, and those promises have not been kept. And so that's a concern, and it's a concern, you know, that it's only going to be used, you know, for storage of vehicles. And then, of course, you know, it was revealed after that statement that those vehicles would then be crushed, which is just going to cause more of the debris in the air that naturally blows in our direction. And, it's just concerning. We've been voicing our opinions at every meeting, fighting this, and trying to explain how we feel, being that it's labeled as rural residential.
Well, let's take a touch on that a minute. It's my understanding that they have two choices. They have a choice to have that property rezoned. If they have that property rezoned to heavy industrial, then that will open that property up for several different uses. They have chose not to do that. They have chose to limit that use to a storage vehicle area. If this board decides to support this, then it would be part of our final order recommendation that they will have to abide by that. There is testimony that has been said by the planning that if they do not, then that's a code violation. If the code violation, in my understanding, that we could put in there, if there's a code violation, and if they violates that they don't do what our order says, then that's a null and void our order, and it goes away. Is that the interpretation, Mr. Davis? Do you agree with that? So, when we look at the use, and I understand your concern, I understand the neighborhood concern, but I also understand that this business has been there since what, the 70s, the 80s? I know it's been there since the 80s, possibly the 70s. And I understand that it's changed as far as, they continue to do their business, which they're allowed to do on that property. Now, I'm trying to understand, they want a storage facility, but they can also crush the cars as often as they like to get rid of the cars, or they ask them to store them. So how we got to understand the rural village. The rural village allowed this use, or they have the opportunity to have it rezoned. I think you're better off if we can work this out some way. If we can work it out by a landscape buffer where you will not see the vehicles. Would that something, we need to talk to planning about that, but would that be something that would help y'all to mitigate this?
Well, if that is a storage area to begin with, and then they decide that they're going to be crushing more of the vehicles, which greatly affects our neighborhood.
But they're going to crush the vehicles if they don't use this for storage. It has nothing to do with their current business. They're going to do their business.
Right, I get that. But what I'm saying is, it is, their decision once this is passed, whether or not to simply store those vehicles on that 5 acres, or whether they will take the opportunity to begin crushing even more vehicles. And I personally don't understand how rural residential area, when it's zoned for that, can even head in an opposite direction. And they have been, if you want to look back over a multitude of letters that the neighborhood has sent, and in other, I'm sure you have other means of looking into things, they have not been in code compliance for a very, very long time on many different issues. So, it is concerning, and I personally, I don't know how the others feel, but I personally feel like, coming to these meetings and voicing my concerns, like that, in my heart, I feel like that really doesn't even matter. We've been fighting this, like I said, over and over and over again, year after year after year. So I feel like perhaps, and I could be wrong, correct me please if I'm wrong, but I feel as though they have more rights than the residential, people that live there. This is our home.
Ma'am, they do have property rights from the property owner. And it's my understanding that they've been in business since 70s or 80s. And they have property rights, and they have and we as a board have to understand that they do have property rights.
Okay.
We understand that y'all have the opportunity to come here and voice opposition, and we're here to hear from you. But from them being in that facility for that long, then they have the right to operate their business.
Okay, so what is our property rights as being homeowners directly across the
Did you buy
street?
your property before you bought your property after they've been in business, right?
Yes,
They were in business when you bought your property.
that is correct.
Then you was
But it
aware of
was-
that business being there,
It
correct?
was a much smaller business when I purchased that property in 2005. And at that time, it was not even labeled as heavy industrial.
It's labeled heavy industrial because it was there before the zoning. It was there I believe in the 70s and 80s. You shaking your head, come up to the podium. You have the documentation when it was in place? I mean, I grew up in that area. I drove up and down 1087. It's been there since the 80s. I can assure you of that.
It was like 82.
82, and the comprehensive plan came into being in 1996. State your name for the record.
Henning, 20 Jefferson Lane. They're in violation of the actual use. Salvage and recycling definition is motor vehicles only, not household appliances and building scrap and any non-vehicle salvage. The existing salvage yard is crushing and smashing and dropping large piles of non-vehicle salvage right now, and that's like there's a car accident every 5 minutes on 1087 from the noise. I mean, it's loud, and I'm half deaf. I have to wear hearing aids, and it bothers me. And so therefore, the salvage yard itself is not in compliance with its own definition of use. So the expansion onto the 5 acres is going to give them more to crush and more noise to crush back on the 8 acres. So it is expansion, but like she said, we've made a number of code complaints, and they have just shut our code complaint down. If I send something in, it won't be recognized. I have to go through Donna Johns or Brad Drake or somebody to send something in for me in order for it to get heard. I would say the lights are blinding us down the highway, and it's just obvious, big old huge 4-foot lights shining, they're up in the air, and everything violates Eglin lighting, it violates regular Walton County lighting, and they go out there and they say, oh, we don't see anything, and they count it resolved. What do I think? Code enforcement does not exist in this county for this property. Maybe other properties, I hear get thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, against them. But this property itself, the police.
All right,
They
this
were
is what
dumping-
we're going to do. What we're going to do is stick to the issue that we're here to listen to. We will give you a little bit of leeway that you can voice some of your concerns, and I think we've heard that. But we're here going to make a decision. Are we going to allow this to be an exceptional use for this 5 acres on the north side? If there's something going on with the 8 acres other than that you don't think is right, that's not our business. Now, we understand that you have voiced that, and we would take that in consideration. But we're going back to a conditional use. What is your opposition for them expanding their business?
Yes, because they're in violation of every rule that was written for them. And by allowing them to expand their business, that is condoning their behavior for the last
If
6 years
code
since
enforcement did
2019.
not, excuse me, if code enforcement did not take and do a citation, and if they did not issue a fine, then I feel like they do not feel like there is a violation. Because I know that code enforcement love to harass people, and they love to do fines, and they love to take and get violations on the record to go before the magistrate. So, you know, I hear your complaints, but evidently, you know, they don't have one.
We have to create a complaint. We have to do the complaining. I think maybe the rules have changed, but they don't fix anything. We make the complaint, it's right there. There's no 6-foot setback, the lights, the other issues that we have for code compliance.
Well, we're gonna
and
go
they
back
never
to,
fixed.
we're gonna go back to the 5 acres. What is your complaint with the 5 acres? If they go and put up a fence where you can't see the vehicles, and if they take and put a buffer before the fence where you can't see the fence, would that make y'all please?
Just being there is against everything we want, because
There's nothing that they can do to make y'all happy.
no, because the noise will always be there.
But you
and this
did buy
5
your,
acres
you
will
did
help the
buy your
noise get-
property after, you did buy your property knowing that that business was there, correct?
No, we bought our property 9 years before this 5 acres was bought. It
Talking
was
about the-
bought in 2009.
I'm talking about the 8 acres that is in business, when it was the business that it's in, you knew it was that type of
It's
business
not the
when you
same
bought there.
business. It's not the same business. It's not just car parts. In 2018, there's the big flu change in 2018, and nobody knew about it. Every 10 years, you do a big flu change in this county that you look at over all the codes. And that flu change made it go to heavy industrial, and nobody even knew about it. We just noticed all of a sudden it got noisier, the lights went up, they bought, you know, and that was 2018. And we're going, what happened? I mean, and Matt Carpenter said, oh, it was in the paper, and nobody reads the paper.
I agree with you 100%. Anytime there's any changes to the comprehensive plan land development code, they need to treat it like a variance, and they need to notify every property owner that it affects. I agree with you on that. I don't think that putting it in the paper is notice. I agree with you on that. But we're going to focus on the 5 acres, and you're going to help us out. What can they do to help you to agree with it?
They can move somewhere else where there actually is heavy industrial property that is not in a neighborhood, and there's plenty in this county that is vacant. They cleared that property without permit, and I made a complaint about them storing stuff, and they were already using it for years for crushing, and we're putting crushed cars on there to stage them to put on the truck to take away to Pensacola. And so in retaliation against my complaint in November of 21, they started putting up the fence. They cleared the property, 80% of the property flat, cleared it out. And they put up 1,440 feet of 8-foot steel wall fence all the way around it. And it was practically like retaliation for me complaining. And
Why is
when
that
they did
retaliation? Isn't offense a good thing?
because he says he will never leave. He will never leave.
Yeah,
Mark
but,
Roney says he would, and they didn't
isn't
take,
a-
at the community meeting, they didn't take any input from when we had the first meeting was in January. We're out there freezing to death. They're doing this to intimidate us. They canceled the meeting without us knowing it. We're all out there waiting for the meeting on January 4th of 24. It didn't happen. So, okay, we finally come back at the end of the month, January 30th, and it's in their building, and we're all in there. And I asked, well, are you going to take any input from the community? And they said no. And so I'm going there is something really wrong. I've noticed at code enforcement meetings, there's a time you can lie, and it's fine. It's before they take the oath. It's the announcements section of the meeting before they take the oath. You can get up here and lie and say, okay, we want to move this off, we want to
Sir,
move
they
this
lie
off.
when they
Anyway.
get up here and take the oath. Trust me, they do. So go ahead. There's nothing you could, there's no way y'all would have there's no way that you would be happy with the 5 acres.
Okay, it's like they just do it, and now that there's cars on the property right now, there's about 10 or 15 cars on the property right now that's illegal. To me, it's just like creeping socialism. It's like, it's gradually, they just see how far they can go and get away with it. And they've got plenty of money. They're making plenty of money on the 8 acres. He doesn't need to make any more money. He's making plenty of money to afford $7,000 worth of fees and lawyer firms and everything like that, and engineering firms.
Sir, you need to
So,
do the conclusion of your presentation.
oh, I've seen a lot of mistakes in the presentation. It says there's, and I wrote that up a few times. There's like 17 mistakes in their project plan.
Okay.
I'm even as far as the lights go.
The lights
the
are
guy
not
at
our,
Eglin.
the light's not our issue.
Yeah, well, the plan says that there are no lights, but there are lights on the existing 8 acres that were put in to light up the 5 acres. So it's kind of one of those little technical issues that, oh, there's no lights exactly on that 5 acres, but the lights are on the 8 acres, and they're huge, and they're shining, blinding the whole neighborhood, blinding the highway, and lighting that. And this is the kind of behavior that this business doesn't care about this neighborhood, just doesn't care about this neighborhood. And basically, approving this is basically saying that anything goes. You can do anything you want. Code enforcement. I mean, like I said, this has been going on since 2019. 2019, when they just started using the property and stacking cars and stuff, until we finally would make a complaint, and then so it's just, he inherited it from his dad back. His dad started like back in the 80s, and then he inherited it in 2009. And then he bought that property, the 5 acres, to expand it. They've not been good neighbors, and they bought some more property up the street, just another 5 acres, just another 100 feet further north, and we're afraid, well, they're going to do the same thing with that.
We're gonna stay focused on the 5 acres. We appreciate you coming. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
So
State your name for the record.
Marvin Christensen. I moved on my lot in 92,
92.
and that's when Otis, a man in Niceville, owned that 6 acre lot. It's a 6 acre lot, not 5. So let's get the facts straight. Because I checked all the paperwork, I was planning to buy it, it's 5.9 acres.
Okay.
And it was a few years later, in 2012, I come home from a cruise, and Mr. Runge had come over, took out 600 feet of my fence and 30 of my trees. That's right on, I bordered the property. I'm on the north side of it. He took out all my trees and fence. So I replaced the trees and fence myself. And if you want to check the lot, when Mr. Runge built the fence around his salvage yard, it's approximately 25 feet onto this lot. And the bench marker from all surveys starts at my back corner. That's where the marker is. And I had a dozen surveyors all tell me that fence is 25 feet on that lot. So now you've lost 8/10 of an acre, which Mr. Runge is using now in his salvage yard. So the lot now is 5.1 and his is 8. Who owns the 8/10 in between? Who owns that piece? And I can go on a few more things here. I didn't make you a big picture, but I don't know if you want to see this one.
He's got a picture. he'd like
Do
to
I now?
submit.
Pass it around.
See the white stake in the middle there? That is my property line. That's how far he went on to my property when he cleared it. See the white stake? And everything to the left is my property. That's how far he come on to my
You on
property.
the north side or you on the west side?
North side.
You on the north side.
Our whole property line borders that.
And you on the north side, if I'm right on that, is there a dirt road that's on this property?
No. It's a driveway goes in,
There's a driveway.
and it goes into this trailer. It's not a stick-built home, it's a trailer. It's one of the hurricane storm trailers that he put on the lot. And it was placed on that lot 12, 13 of 12 when he cleared this.
Hang on a minute. Are we gonna keep this and enter this into the record as that?
Yeah, put it in the record.
Mr. Hayward?
Yeah, we can, if the board wants it as part of the record, we'll introduce it as, Public's Exhibit 1.
And it's your testimony that this white stake is the boundary line,
That's the property line.
and you have a survey showing that? Did you have a survey disputing that he cleared it? Did you have a survey, did you address that with him with the survey?
Well, that survey is in the middle of the lot. It's not on either end, but there is a survey on, and I can show you where the survey markers are.
What we're gonna call that?
That'll be Public's Exhibit 1.
So enter.
That was in 12, and that's when he put this trailer on the lot that day.
Put his name on it.
And we have another problem with your planning. Either it's gonna be a code violation or something. Because did you read the little article right up on the top of this plan they put out?
What are you pointing out, sir?
Right up here on the top of this planning for this lot. See the writing right up here in the top?
What does it say? I mean, like,
It says, remove the fence.
Remove.
Existing 4-foot barbed wire fence.
Yes.
To be removed. Is that your chain link fence, you think, that's being noted?
The what?
In the photo, there's a chain link fence on
The
your
chain link
property,
fence is between 18 and 20 feet off
the property line?
property line.
Okay, so it's not showing up in these drawings.
When the original people owned it, they had animals, and then there's like an acre behind, so they left about a 20-foot
Yep.
gap so that they could get to the back of the property.
So they're gonna remove that old barbed wire fence?
But it's my fence.
Barbed wire fence is yours?
I put it in after they took it out. After they removed it and 30 trees, I put that fence back in. And I planted 30 trees back. And now you say they can take out the fence on my property? And here's a survey of it if you want to see a survey. My fence is about a foot back on my property. And you're gonna give him rights to come on my property and remove my
No,
fence?
we're not gonna give him no rights whatsoever. He doesn't have the right to get on your property. He doesn't have the right to remove the fence. I can assure you, he does not, and I can probably pretty well assure we can get him up and testify that that's not his intent. Now, if you want him to explain what remove, I guess we can get that done, but he doesn't have a right to come on your property or do anything on your property.
Right, so you want this one of the
Sure.
survey? It goes, the survey state right here. Where my fence is put behind it.
Applicant or public, two.
And that's, on the end, right next to 1087. That way.
Where's it at?
He's up here, so you can see it's transitioning to the white picket fence here, and that's labeled here.
Let me get to that photo.
Oh, and the other
Let's
one,
just hold on just a second. Mr. Davis. Is there any, do you have any documentation that there is a dispute with a neighbor as far as the survey?
Turn your-
And all, with all due respect to Mr. Christensen, he's trying to relitigate a lawsuit that he brought in 2016.
no, this is a new one right here.
Now, just hang on a minute. I've asked for him to address the board with an issue. Go ahead.
Okay,
He's trying to relitigate a lawsuit he brought in 2016 where he was essentially claiming the same thing regarding the boundary. The judge actually found that the survey he produced in the final judgment, I'll give you the case number, established the boundary between the parties and ruled in favor of the defendant, Mr. Runge's company, Jakara, which owns the property. So all he's doing here today, with all due respect to him, is trying to relitigate that case. That case is over, it's done, there is no boundary dispute.
But that has been settled.
I'll give you the case number, it's,
Now, just to give the testimony.
yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Today, there is no litigation, no lawsuit, everybody agree on the property line. Is
I don't know that
correct?
Mr. Christensen agrees, but yes, sir, there's no lawsuit.
Well, what about the fence? Is there gonna be a removal of the fence?
If it's on my client's property and we need to remove it for the purpose of building, for the buffering and for the fence that we'll be required to place, the short answer would be yes. If it's not, we won't. Just that
If it's
simple.
on your property?
Correct. And
Okay.
that issue's been decided, the case number is 2013 CA 246.
You can get the case number to our attorney.
Thank you, I just want to make sure.
Okay, so we settled the issue for survey, and we don't feel like there is a survey issue, because the judge has made the decision. So.
That's been settled years ago. I have nothing to do with that case no more. I don't know why he's bringing it up, because that has nothing to do with what they're doing here.
Okay,
This shows that they want to remove my fence. And we have done several surveys on this property, and it shows now they're going to remove my fence.
I disagree. They cannot remove your fence. That's on your that's
Well,
on your property.
That's what I'm saying, but it shows that here.
I don't know what the drawing is. We don't have the surveyor here to do the testify to what the drawing was or what it means. But I know for a fact that they do not have a legal right to remove your fence.
On his property.
If it's on, yeah,
It is on my property,
then they won't remove it.
because I gave you a survey marker right there.
Yeah, this drawing actually shows your fence on your property, but it is noted to be removed, and I believe that is an error in the drawing.
It's an error.
It's an error by
We're
Jenkins
not gonna
Engineering.
keep on doing this now. Is there any other testimony you want to give for this?
Other than the noise, I got one other thing on this. On the fence setback, it states up here, 25-foot setback on the, by 1087. 25-foot setback. On the back of the property, it's a 20-foot setback for the people that live on the east side and back. But on my side, I only get 10 feet.
Well, let me ask you a question. What would make you happy?
Well, mainly what he's doing, noise, dropping stuff. He's shaking stuff off the walls in my house. He drops stuff over there, and if they get within 10 feet of my property line and dropping stuff,
They're not gonna be dropping stuff, they're just using this property
they drop
for
stuff.
storage.
You don't know Mr. Runge very well then.
So they're gonna carry them with a loader.
Because they drop and hit stuff in there, there's loud screeching noises where they shove stuff around. And if you're gonna put them within 10 feet of my property, I don't know what he's gonna do, I don't know. I have no way of doing. There's no way to figure it out. Yes, we had a lawsuit way back, but it's over and done. But my next lawsuit will not be in this county, I can guarantee you that.
Roseanne, what's the setbacks on this property? What would be the proposed setbacks if we should approve this? What's the proposed setback?
25 feet.
Would you like?
I gotta turn it off. The required setbacks would be 25 in the front, 10 on the side, and 20 in the rear. However, the applicant has provided a landscape buffer of 25 feet, exceeding the setback.
25 feet on his side of the property?
Right, and just to address.
That'd be the north side. We're gonna
that would
reference
be
the north side.
That would be the north side, except for where the driveway.
So the gentleman is
Located.
willing to increase
This is
that
10 feet.
landscape. Sir, let us get our testimony on the record. He's increasing it from 10 feet to 25 feet.
10-foot setback with a 25-foot landscape buffer.
Right, he's got it, but he's gonna put a 25-foot landscape buffer
On the north side.
on the north side.
That is correct.
So you,
That's for half of the property, but the back half is still 10 feet. He's got two different setbacks. The front has, like it's a 35-foot, because the driveway, the man lives back there, that's a 35, about a 30-foot setback. But in the back half of the property, it's only 10 foot.
it is her testimony that they have agreed to do 25 feet landscape buffer all the way down on the north boundary.
Except the part where the driveway is, and that
Except-
10-foot setback will still be landscaped.
But that driveway would be landscaped on both sides?
That is correct. Just not in the driveway.
Right.
There,
But-
right.
but
Landscaping
there's-
on both sides of
But it's
it.
showing the,
That's correct.
so do you understand that you're gonna have, he's providing you extra landscape buffer to help you out?
Well, unless we get a new drawing, it doesn't say this.
What they providing us tonight, we're gonna make part of the record.
It needs to
If
be
they
the
do
record
not-
then.
If they do not, then they be in violation of what we're gonna do tonight if we choose to do that.
Then all 600 feet has to be at least 25 feet.
We're gonna do 25 feet except for the driveway. The driveway has buffer on each side of the driveway.
I have
I
that.
don't, we're not necessarily doing that. I don't know why the dirt road couldn't be moved out of the 25-foot buffer.
He's only required 10-foot buffer,
Well,
but he's doing the road and he's putting the buffer there and the buffer there, so we do whatever you wanna do at that time.
I'm just saying that he's expressing concern that everywhere else back here it's 25 feet, and then because of this existing dirt road, they're unable to get 25
It's
feet of
25
landscape
feet
buffer.
That's what I was
here
going
and
to
there.
address.
Yeah, but then
But
you
this
have the
section
road
you
going
don't have,
through it
it
where they're
says 10
bringing
feet.
all the vehicles in and out of there. So you have,
They won't be using that for the road to bring vehicles in and out.
I think they
I think
come
that's
in
for
the
the house.
existing property the other way, don't they?
the other way?
Let's get this on the record. That road that they have that is showed, what is that road?
12-foot
12-foot
dirt road.
dirt road will not be used for bringing the vehicles in. Is that,
That, the location indicated for the operation of this business is from the existing site, not that.
he will not use that road.
That was not part of the approval for this project.
So we can put in our order that that road would not be used for the purpose of bringing vehicles in and out.
That's what was stated as part of this
Good with
application.
that?
That makes more sense.
Write it down, so we're gonna have to take and make us a
And
list.
if I may, just to clear up some of the fence questions there, I think the intent of the removal of the fence is because there is a requirement for a 6-foot screening fence to reduce the
Now,
impact.
just hang on a minute.
Okay.
You will not remove this guy's fence.
I understand, I'm not
If it's on
saying
his
that.
boundary, you're not gonna remove it.
Yes,
But
I
it's your
understand that.
testimony that you're gonna install a 6-foot screen fence.
Yes, the 6-foot screen wall is what is required by the code on the property boundary. Whether it's decided to be moved forward and landscape on the outside, the code just requires a screen fence. 6-foot high screen fence to reduce the impact.
That's to catch any trash.
It's a screening mechanism.
It helps with the, yes. Do you understand? They will not mess with your fence, but he will be required by the code to install a 6-foot screen fence.
It's a solid fence, not a,
Right, it's a screen wall.
determines what, a screen wall, whatever. What is a screen wall?
Solid.
Is it a solid wall? Are you talking solid wall?
It is a solid wall.
Okay.
There's still gonna be a metal fence, a metal fence around the property, like an 8-foot high, it says, I think.
6 foot.
Yeah,
Oh,
6
there's
foot's
two
what
fences.
required. Beyond that, I would have to leave it up to the
It's the existing
applicant.
fence that they put up on the property that says
Because it's
it's
6
8
foot on the
tall
property
and
line.
metal.
I worked contracting since '84.
So they're helping you out by the increase in the buffer. Code is helping you out by having a screen fence.
They're gonna have a screen fence and, so the whole side then will be a 25-foot buffer.
That's where the road is. There's gonna be a
Right.
10-foot road and a 10-foot, so you get your 25-foot.
Yeah, because,
So that's on your side. That's gonna be better than what you have now. And this is voluntarily that is what he's doing. And we're gonna make it part of this conditional use if we so choose to vote that way.
I don't know if it's better or not, because they're gonna be up close to me now. Because now I have supposed to be 6 acres between. And I can explain to you how the lot went from 5.9 to 5.1.
We're not, sir, we don't have time for that testimony. We got another lawyer that we got to deal with, and they're long-winded, and we're gonna be here to 12 o'clock, so we need to move along. But it's not, I don't mean to be smart on this, but we gotta stay to our issues. And the issue is, are we gonna allow this, not allow it? We're trying to get to the understanding where it will help your neighbors. Thank you. Anyone else? Come up, state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Ron Ennis, and my concerns are, I have property on the north side of this gentleman here, that they have purchased land adjacent that runs parallel with my 5 acres, and my concerns is what is he gonna do with that property?
That's not our concern.
Okay, thank you.
But anyone else? Anyone else? Ms. Roseanne, would you like to have any comments you want to add? Huh? Mr. Davis?
Just for the record, the survey shows 5.18 acres. You've addressed the buffer, and you've addressed the setbacks, and again, he will comply. There are no outstanding code complaints today. Any code complaint we've had have been resolved. many moons ago. So all that testimony, in my humble opinion, is irrelevant.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Davis. Anyone has any questions, any concerns? Motion to close it public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion.
And before the board makes a motion, just as a reminder, under this section of the code, this is a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners on whether to approve or not. You also have the criteria that was in the TRC report that you have in the back, so that also lists various conditions that are required. So if you want to adopt those, they may address some of the things that you were thinking of.
One's in the back. You talking about the staff report, zoning board,
Yes, sir.
that staff
Yeah,
report?
if you look at page 3 of 10, you'll see that the first large block says conditions of approval. And it outlines various things that the technical review committee have set forth as conditions for approval, considerations, kind of goes over their review process, who's reviewed it from the county, and what their findings were, whether there was compliance or not.
You got it? Just before the survey, or before the notices.
Charlie, keep going. You were going the right way. Find 3 of
3 of 10 in the,
Keep on going.
So I'll just read straight from the code. I know this is kind of a unique one that the board doesn't get a lot of. So states the Board of Adjustment shall consider the application at a public hearing, and reviewing the application, the Board of Adjustment shall consider the recommendations of the TRC and shall determine whether the proposed development meets the requirements and special conditions of Section 3 below in its recommendation. Based upon such determination, the Board of Adjustment shall make a recommendation on the project prior to being heard by the Planning Commission.
So it went to the technical, it's going to the zoning board of adjustment, then it's going to the planning, and then it's going back to the county commissioners?
Yep.
For clarification, Mr. I don't, is this a recommending body? I don't know that it goes to the planning commission, this being the recommending body.
Well, I'm just reading what's in the code.
Yes, and it's stated 2 different ways in the
113,
code.
14. Okay, so then
So,
there would not go to the Planning Commission?
right, that is my understanding, that
It would
this
just
would
go
serve as the recommending body.
Okay, so that goes
Thank you.
straight to the Board of County Commissioners from here.
It would go to the special magistrate and then the board
Oh,
of county commissioners.
Thank you.
And I do want to clear one more thing, if that's okay. On the fence requirement, I just wanted the board to clarify if we're requiring that screen fence on the property line or inside of the property boundary. As it is a required screening, so.
You mean
So-
inside of
On
the
the property
landscape
boundary
buffer?
or inside of the landscape buffer.
What is the county's position on placement of fences relative to landscape buffers?
It can, right, it doesn't specify that this particular fence has to be on the property boundary, but with the dispute between the fence on the northern property line, I just wanted to make that clear, where the location of that screen fence
I
needs to be
think
located.
We can handle that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Not necessarily. I mean, if you're generating
Now, wait,
dust.
hang on now, y'all need to discuss it where we all can hear it. Go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off, go ahead and ask your question.
No, you're fine. I was asking Jeff on the fence part, would it, in his view, defeat the purpose if we put the screen fence in front of all of the foliage and stuff, or if it needed to be the other way around?
No, rather, my position.
I would rather it was absorbing the sound and the dust on the inside.
Inside
What
the
we're
buffer.
gonna do, we gotta have a motion, and we're gonna tie that motion to the staff report to adopt this, staff report as part of the motion. Right, Mr. Knight? Recommendation
Yeah, the recommendation is you're
would be
supposed,
part of it.
right,
And then
unless
we
you're
could-
gonna deviate from it, as they said, like you wanna make specific that you
And
want.
then, yeah, right, we're gonna take and add what we discussed in the meeting. You remember that, so we need a motion and a recommendation. So we're making a recommendation to the county commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions. And in addition to the conditions listed by the county, it's my opinion that the full 25-foot landscape buffer should continue all the way down the north property boundary. Additionally, the 10-foot landscape buffer along the street should be increased to 25 feet. And the drawings from Jenkins Engineering need to be modified to remove the note about removing the neighbor's fence.
Let's go back to your clarification on the 25-foot buffer on the road. You're talking about the small road coming in? The dirt road?
87.
He's talking about the 10-foot buffer on 1087.
Well, I'm increasing that from 10 to 25, but I also feel that the dirt road that comes in to access the Katrina cottage diminishes the value of that 25-foot landscape buffer. And that the neighbor has complained that that was insufficient. And so to address the concerns expressed by the community, the additional landscaping material is necessary to mitigate sound and dust that transmits from this site over to the adjacent properties. It's my opinion that moving that dirt road would not be an extreme burden.
So that's the motion.
No, well, I want to be clear on the motion, on the recommendation is that the north boundary will have a consistent 25-foot buffer all the way, and the dirt road would have to be moved on the south side of that buffer.
Correct.
Where do you want them to put the screen fence?
It's my opinion the screen fence should be located just inside the property line, and that the landscaping would be on the inside of the fence to help to absorb sound and dust before it leaves the site.
That's part of your recommendation.
Yes.
But just south of his property line. I mean, like inside of the property line, not on the actual line,
Yes.
not exactly on the line.
Best
Right.
practice is
It doesn't
to avoid
matter
being
if
in another lawsuit.
It doesn't matter if he wants to put it on the line, you know, Jeff has stated where he wanted to put. Anything else? What else did we mention?
Well, we have to, well, I guess we also have to note the additional conditions. Do I need to read the other 12 conditions in the
No.
staff report?
No, because we're gonna
No.
make it part of
I'm gonna
it.
attach it.
I think
So it
those are-
references lighting and the 6-foot high fence. And
All of that is gonna be part of it. You don't have to specify that.
okay,
To specify this is used for storage only.
that was what the testimony was.
Melissa, do you have the motion, the recommendation of? Everyone understands the motion for the recommendation to the county commission?
Can we restate it in full?
I can.
Yeah.
So in addition to the county recommendations, I've asked that we move the access road to the Katrina Cottage. So there's a full 25-foot landscape buffer on the northern property boundary. Additionally, I would like to increase the landscape buffer along the road from 10 feet to 25 feet.
The fence.
Well, we've decided that it would probably be the best practice to have the fence on the property line with the landscaping inside the fence.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Have motions, second. Any discussion?
I think it's the right thing to do. Given that business has been there almost all my life that I can remember. I mean,
That's right.
I can't say,
Mr. Story?
I'm for it as well for the same reasons. I don't think approving it means you can do anything you want from this point forward. That's just not true. I mean, to be point blank. But I think they meet the requirements that they have to receive this special exemption. So I think between that and the provisions we've put into it, I think we've balanced the rights of the business and the concerns of the public, and so I will support it.
Jeff?
Yeah, I don't have anything additional to add. I think everybody in this situation, it's a compromise all the way around. And this exemption, as you stated earlier, is actually in the best interest of the community and the neighborhood, in that
Speaking to the mic.
in that it's restricting the use and puts in place inspections and other things that make sure that they're going to continue to be a better neighbor to the community there. So this is probably the best path forward in lieu of the alternatives.
Charlie?
I agree that it beats most of the alternatives. I think that the ability of the public to be able to make complaints and then have it followed up by code compliance would help mitigate any problems or anything down the road, and it's annually renewed, so that should make some protections there for everybody.
We have a motion, second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? You received your request of recommendation. Next item on the agenda,
Actually, number 2. Weird.
Bob, are they here?
Yes, sir, they're here.
Who's here to present this here for the applicant? This is a variance request.
Gentlemen, I'm Kyle Besh. Thanks for taking the time to hear my variance request.
We appreciate you coming. Go
What
ahead.
did you do?
So the short of it, built a lovely home down in Inlet Beach. When I was laying out the garage, the lot isn't rectangular, it's slightly skewed. I guess it's my OCD, but I hate walking past property and you see the house sit one way and any detached structures not squared up to the house. So after I did my survey and laid everything out, I made the mistake of, when I was squaring the garage up to the house, I basically moved the front strings to the left instead of moving my back strings to the right. This resulted in me, the northeast corner of my garage is 6 inches into the setback. As you can see in the survey, I knew where my lot lines were. I knew what my setbacks were. I just made a mistake. I hit my setback in the back corner. I know it says 7.4, but when they do the survey and they place their survey equipment, I already had framing going up at that point, so the stake was just outside of the foundation. So that's difference of an inch. Basically, upon discovering my mistake, I immediately notified the neighbor that I'm encroaching, my neighbor to the east. I sent him a copy of the survey. He has provided a letter in response. So he also has built several homes in the neighborhood.
Hang on a minute.
Yep, no problem.
Attorney, read it into the record.
Throughout the duration of this project, Kyle Besh has been a considerate neighbor who has readily communicated any issues or concerns immediately upon discovering that the northeast corner of his garage foundation was in the setback. He notified me of his mistake. He sent me a copy of the survey and apologized for the error. In order to ensure that there is no further encroachment, Kyle has agreed to work with me to share the cost of placing an ecological enhancement easement on the property line. This easement will consist of a shallow swale comprised of native drought-tolerant plants on irrigation. Respectfully, David Bell.
And I can provide additional correspondence.
Hang on.
Sure.
Applicant 1,
Yes, sir. We'll mark this as applicant's exhibit 1.
exhibit 1. Okay, now go ahead.
I also basically have a copy of my survey where I templated along the property line the ecological enhancement easement that we're considering placing on the property.
We're going to trust that you do that. So
What's that?
we're going to trust that you do that.
Roger. I haven't heard any other concerns from the neighbors. Essentially, going through the questionnaire, I could tell it was written by attorneys because it didn't make much sense in plain English. But when I was looking for basically a description in land development code, I think it's section 8.02 of different examples of any hardship. There weren't any spelled out, so I mean, maybe it's just poor research as the engineer I am, but I basically, if I'm forced to remove this garage, it's not going to be rebuilt. Everything on my property is highest quality construction. I mean, I've got photos of the duration of the process. I pounded the material into stone, poured a monolithic slab. It's a really well-constructed structure and a beautiful home. But yeah, it's my personal home. If I'm forced to remove it, there would be some hardship to the neighbors. I mean, loss of property values. We're on a 1-lane, no outlet street, private road. So any additional construction traffic coming in there can further deteriorate the condition of the road. I don't think it would be in the best interest of the community.
You're asking the board on your garage, you're at 6.9 inches, so you're asking for a 6-inch on one corner, and it comes down to 1 inch on the other corner. Is that correct?
Yeah, what I'm
7.4.
requesting is basically the current siding of the garage to remain in place, so I can.
As long as we attach this survey to it, you're good with that.
What's that?
As long as we attach the survey, you're good. We're not going to give you 6 inches all the way down. We're going to give you the encroachment part. You'd be good with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I am.
And you have your neighbors, no one else has complained.
Nobody's complained. In
Honey,
fact,
and
they,
you
they,
got one
they're
neighbor-
dismayed on my behalf.
You got a letter here that you wrote, that you said your neighbor wrote, so we're good with that, right?
My
I'm
neighbor,
joking.
my neighbor did draft that letter, and I can provide any additional correspondence between us if needed.
I got you. Have a seat.
All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Mr. Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this request of a variance is from section 5.00.03 of the Walton County Land Development Code to reduce the side yard setback 6 inches from 7.5 to 6.9 feet. Staff finding is unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, the requested variance does not appear to satisfy the minimum requirements of section 1.16.03 of the Land Development Code. And this property is in a residential preservation zoning. May I enter the staff report in the record, please?
Good, Mr. Bob?
Questions for me before I sit down, sir?
I don't think so. We're good.
Thank you, sir.
He entered it. We got it. Anyone here wants to comment on this? Anyone for it? Anyone against it? Anyone want to add anything? Mr. Boss, you get a last chance. You want to add anything? You're good? You think you're in pretty good shape?
Motion to close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion?
Motion to approve the variance attaching the survey be just the affected area on the survey of the garage.
Are we gonna do the easement condition? 'Cause I would just point out, if you approve it and you don't make that a condition, then you can go back to it.
We're not gonna make that condition. We're gonna grant the
Yep.
variance. Go, we have a
Second.
motion, second. Discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Your, request was denied. And you got it. All right. Next one. This is the appeal. Anybody need to take a break?
Yep.
Jeff is gonna take a smoke break.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Oh, boy.
Are you Melissa's assistant? Was that alcohol vodka that's in her container? Not this time. You might need to do a check on her when she gets behind the steering wheel.
Hey, I don't need that kind of help, man.
A couple of years?
A couple years.
Oh, okay.
A couple years.
Oh, okay. He says something about your behavior today, but we're good.
No telling.
Edward, you want a copy?
I'll need it for the record, man.
Mr. Kyle,
That's everybody.
we should have your order signed in a few weeks. Give us about 14 days, we get it signed. And you are good to go. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Appreciate you coming. You done a good job. You did better than lawyers. You was honest.
100%.
Taking a lot of shots here tonight.
You know it's the truth. You're around them all the time.
Yeah, I've been giving her those.
I'm like emailing everyone trying to tell you guys to give her a call.
Do what?
The bathroom smells atrocious.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's terrible,
Oh, yeah, I smelled that coming in.
terrible.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's hard to use it. Paul Newman.
Paul Newman.
Paul Newman.
Everybody's back. Y'all ready to get started? We call the meeting back to order. State your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Robert Kaufman on behalf of Paul and Cynthia Newman. Here with me tonight also Melissa Ward, certified planner with law firm of Dunlap and Shipman. And we're actually here on an issue regarding a fence and a landscape buffer, and whether that fence may be on the property line or just inside the property line, or whether it needs to be 10 feet inside the lot to the interior of the landscape buffer. So the Newman's property is in the Highlands Park platted subdivision. It's on the north side of 30A in the Blue Mountain area. And if you'd like to, well, I should say I've handed out a notebook to the board, and if there are no objections, I'd ask that be admitted as applicant's exhibit, compound exhibit 1.
I'm sorry, I was thinking.
No objection from the county.
So entered.
Thank you, sir. So if you'd like to orient yourself while I'm talking, tab 5 and tab 6 in the notebook have a copy.
Hang on a minute. He doesn't
Oh,
have a
I
book.
apologize.
That was intentional.
Thank you.
So tab 5 and tab 6 in the notebook, if you want to orient yourself while I'm doing the introduction here. Tab 5 has a copy of the plat that we've marked up with some of the relevant areas. Lot 4 is the property owned by the Newmans, and tab 6 is an aerial photograph of the site. So again, this is a PUD approved by the Board of County Commissioners in 2005. As you can see, Lot 4 is on the northern perimeter of the Highland Parks development, and it backs up to a lot in the older Pines subdivision. The Land Development Code in effect at the time of approval of Highlands Park in 2005 is the relevant version. And we're going to have a lot of information for you tonight, but really what it comes down to, as I mentioned, is simply whether the fence is permitted to be just inside the property line, as we contend, or whether it must be 10 feet inside the Newman's property. The fences, well, the purpose of the fence primarily is to protect the Newman's property from trespassing. By locating the fence, that would be trespassers coming from the Pines subdivision to the north. So the practical effect of putting this fence 10 feet inside their property is to effectively fence out and cede 10 feet of their property to the very folks that they are trying to keep out. When our office, and this came up because they built the fence last year, they were cited for a code violation for having the fence within the landscape buffer. When they first came to our office, we went to the planning department. The initial opinion from the planning department was actually that the fence is permissible in its current location inside the landscape buffer. That position was later rescinded in an email. That email is tab 27 in the notebook that we've handed out. So after that opinion was rescinded and we were told that the code violation would continue, we requested a formal director's determination. And that is in tab 3 of the notebook, as well as the staff report, the formal director's determination, which of course is what we're technically appealing here tonight. And the director's determination is consistent with the revised opinion of the county, finding that the fence cannot be located in the landscape buffer. We of course disagree. We believe the evidence will show, as Ms. Ward will testify to in a moment, that the code in effect at the time of approval of Highlands Park very clearly did allow fences, property line fences within landscape buffers. And the revised opinion of the planning department takes the position that the fence would detrimentally impact the landscape buffer, which we also disagree with. We believe that the fence, if anything, and frankly, you were talking about this in your last hearing, or two agenda items ago, the fence, if anything, would actually be an enhancement to the effect of the buffer. As you were talking about earlier, the purpose of a buffer, Highlands Park is the more dense subdivision. Pines is less dense. It has larger lots. So technically this is a buffer for the benefit of the pines. We recognize that. But the purpose of the buffer is to, I'm quoting from section 50102 of the code, the purpose of a landscape buffer is to protect uses from the traffic, noise, glare, trash, vibration, and odor likely to be associated with a more intensive land use. So a fence is going to help protect from all of those impacts, and a fence plus the vegetated landscape buffer will do a better job than either one of those elements would do by themselves to create that desired buffer effect. And moreover, of course, the Newmans, like any property owners in Walton County, are allowed to protect their property. That is an essential property right, the ability to exclude others and have personal control over your own property. And I'm not saying here, of course, that fences, or rather the Land Development Code, cannot have regulations regarding where fences are located on private property. We know that's not true. But if the position is that fences are not allowed, if a property right like this is being taken away, it must be a clear statement in the Land Development Code, which simply does not exist. Now, before calling Ms. Ward up here, I do want to clarify a few points. It may not be necessary, especially given the discussion you had a few minutes ago, but the first is what this buffer is and what this buffer is not. And here I'm actually reading from the director's determination, and we agree with this paragraph. We're not disputing this. The approved development order, PUD, and site plan for the Highlands Park at Blue Mountain Beach subdivisions do not identify this buffer area as needed to satisfy any other preservation, greenway, nor environmental standards. It appears to be a compatibility buffer based on residential developments of differing densities and lot sizes. So in other words, this is not a buffer that is required vegetative preservation. It is not a buffer to protect the environment. It simply has to do with the less and the more intense land uses because the lot sizes are smaller in Highlands Park than they are in the Pines. That's why it was required as a condition when Highland Parks was approved in 2005. Second thing I wanted to clarify is the Newmans are not asking for a reduction in the landscape buffer. That is actually an option in the code. They could apply for a reduction by putting up a screening wall, which I would argue serves the same purpose as a fence, a buffering effect. That's why the code allows the buffer to be reduced if you put up a wall. But so they could reduce it to 5 feet. They don't want to do that. They would like to keep the full 10-foot vegetated landscape buffer. And there was some vegetation removed. That's part of what they were cited for. They're completely willing to restore that vegetation. There's a note in here in your notebook actually that at one point they've restored 80% of the vegetation, but they've been holding off on completing that because we don't know where the fence is going to be allowed, and they're going to complete the vegetative restoration as soon as we know ultimately where this fence can be located. But again, point being, they're not seeking to reduce the landscape buffer. They're seeking to keep it and enhance it with the fence.
Is there a picture of the fence?
We don't actually have a picture of the fence. It is a 6-foot-high wooden fence, 6-foot-high wooden fence. And this is a long story, and I will let Mr. Newman, I think when he testifies in a few minutes, will speak to this a little bit. It jogs away from just being inside the property line, but because of a beehive maintained by the neighbor very close to the property line, which is another reason why they want the fence. So it's not a straight line. It's not 6 inches from the property line in a straight line as you might see otherwise. It actually does a little jog, which I'll ask Mr. Newman to explain in a few minutes. But first I'd ask Ms. Ward to come up, planner with Dunlap and Shipman, to testify to her review of the code and its application to this fence, and also her personal experience with Walton County's interpretation of where fences may be placed with respect to landscape buffers, historically dating back to the 2005 time period.
Good evening, Melissa Ward with Dunlap and Shipman for the applicant or for the person filing the appeal. I'm a certified planner and have 20 years experience in planning, 11 of which is for Walton County. So Mr. Kaufman gave a great overview. There is a PowerPoint presentation, we weren't able to get it working, I don't think. And so I'm gonna go through this to kind of guide through that, but all of the things that are here are also in this book. So for clarification. So this is an appeal based on where or the location of a fence. And I would just like to say, he's already covered it, but I'm gonna cover it on my slides. The Highland Parks is a PUD. And the significant information on that is that it was approved in 2004, platted in 2005, and subsequent changes, because it was a phased project, occurred throughout the years. The interesting thing here is that in the PUD document that was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on page 5, and that's a tab in your book, shows that it lists things about setbacks and where the setbacks are, and there are greater setbacks next to the pines and lesser setbacks central to that PUD. That's part of the deviations that they asked for. But it included a paragraph that states, and I quote, "Also permitted within the setbacks are steps, covered stoops, ramps, railings, air conditioning equipment, including compressors, pools, decks, garden walls, and garden structures and fences." And what this tells us is that they anticipated that property owners would want to potentially fence their property and that they'd be allowed to have those fences throughout, around in those setbacks. Generally, a property fence is on the exterior of the lot or just inside your property line. I think everybody kind of potentially has that concept. There's a picture in our slides. There's a picture of the lot on lot 4. It was in the first phase, one of the first lots put in. And between that, there's 3 lots that are on the other side of an access easement, and then there's a commercial component to that area that's now built out. The blow up is much easier on a slide. My apologies. This is where the landscape buffer is. This is an access easement for these 3 lots, and the Newmans come off of there. I think they park back here. And this is a foot access easement on lot 5, not on lot 4. And so there's a 5-foot utility easement here. So the reason I point that out is that there was a statement as to the easements being a concern for the fence. So the green lines on this blow up are the pedestrian access easements, which are dedicated to the HOA, and they are private. These are not public easements. And the path that's here that's blue, that is a driveway for these lots and for lot 4 that again is dedicated to the HOA and is private. It's not a public easement. It's not a part of their greenway, of any greenway corridor or access for the public. So now, my references in this document that I had was in 2002. I do have a reference that they gave us that's 2004. They are substantially similar. I don't even think there's much of a difference, but I am going to read.
Just hold on just a second.
Okay.
Her slide's on page 28. Tab 28. Tab 28.
All right.
She's
I'm
on-
sorry.
She's on 6.
I'm glad you told me that.
She didn't explain it very well.
I apologize.
She just started to blah, 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 blah.
I am. I have.
She's been around lawyers so much, she acting like.
Don't tell Gary that. He won't agree with you. And to be fair, all of them have been here all day as well. Maybe not Robert. So I was discussing slide 6, and was there any questions on that so I can? No?
What was your point? What point were you making?
That these are not public easements, that they are not, the point of the fence was to stop the trespass from the north, and these are private easements. There are no public easements for them to enter through. They're coming through the property, but they shouldn't be. That's my point to the fence.
So this is, they own lot 4?
They own lot 4.
And they have a fence up to keep the people that's walking down the access easement off of their property? Is that your testimony?
No, the testimony is there is a fence that traverses the back of lot 4 that the county says should be taken down. And one of the considerations we were told was that because of the easements, but there is no easement that is open to the public in this subdivision for them. That is my point.
Does the fence go across that easement?
It goes across the rear property line.
So the fence does go across that easement?
It follows the rear property line. This is a perimeter fence for a subdivision. This is not a
If I could, Chairman, The area that's marked blue on tab 6, that is an easement owned by the HOA. That's for access to lots 1, 2, and 3 there on the left. And also the Newman's property, lot 4, also has its drive off of that. So that's owned by the HOA. It has been fenced by the HOA. And then on lot 4 and on the north, on the rear of lot 4, that is where we're talking about, where the fence is roughly near the property line. And the county's saying it has to be moved down 10 feet to leave the landscape buffer on the north side of the fence.
So the fence is on the what is that, the south side of the, lot 4? And what is in question is a 15-foot,
The north side. It's oriented by cardinal direction here.
But
North is up.
but it's a 15-foot easement is the issue?
No, not at all. The blue area is not the issue. The blue area is owned by the HOA. It is to the. It's not the Newman's property. The platted lot 4 is the Newman's property, and the fence is on the rear, which is bounds up to, it's hard to see, but it's lot 59 in the Pines. So it's between lot 4 in Highlands Park and lot 59 in the Pines.
Okay.
And the point of illustrating the green easements is that in the email, which is tab 27 in your notebook, it's cited as a reason to not allow the fence to be here, that there are pedestrian easements. And there are pedestrian easements. Our point is that the pedestrian easements are not impacted by the fence in any way. And there are, that we know of, and I have reviewed for it, there are no easements for anybody from the Pines to come into the Highlands Park subdivision here. And the point of the HOA putting up the fence and the Newmans putting up the fence is, of course, to keep out trespassers coming in from the Pines to the north. The Newmans' point being, we do not want to cede 10 feet of the property to the very people who have been trespassing.
What are they coming across for, to get to the beach or something?
Amenities. Highland Parks has a very nice pool area with a tower and all that, so there's some attractive amenities. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, so slide
The
7,
fence right now is on the property line,
it's just inside the property line.
and the county wants you to move it 10 feet.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, slide 7, section 500.07 is methodology for determination of setbacks. That is pertinent because it specifically says in both versions, 2002 and 2004, that the methodology for setbacks, lot line and fences are specifically excluded. So again, we see where the county recognizes that people want to put fences on their property lines or within the setback area outside of their buildable footprint. So that's the intent of slide 7. Slide 8 is a fence placement, which is under chapter 6 of the code before they modified it in 2002. It specifically states under section 60104, fences or hedges may be located in all front, side, and rear yards. No fences or hedges shall exceed 4 feet in height when placed in the front yard. The only change to that in the current code is whether or not they move it back to the building footprint in the front yard. So that's the point of slide 8, is that this is a continuation of that same language in the code, that fences and hedges are allowed in that rear property line areas and they're not required to meet those setbacks. Slide 9, which came from the current code, from chapter 5.01.10.b, is the fence placement, giving you a visual image of what they expect a fence to be on the property line. In this case, as shown, the blue area in that image is the property line and the fence placement. The red area in the front is that they need to keep them 4 feet or shorter in the front for that first 20 feet. So that's just to give you an idea, that understanding, yes, they do allow fences on the property line. In the 2002 and probably the 2004 language under landscape buffers, it's specific, which Mr. Kaufman already read, is that the purpose and intent is to, and I highlighted, protect uses from traffic noise, glare, trash, vibration, and odor. Again, you're driving a vehicle into a more dense subdivision, you don't want the lights bursting through into somebody else. But the fence being inside that landscape buffer is not specifically enhancing that. It could be on the outside along the perimeter line of a subdivision, so that it would not be crucial, that it would still do the same thing, it would actually enhance that buffer. Fences are not permitted or prohibited in landscape buffers, but it specifically states under the use of landscape buffers that there are prohibited uses such as playfields, stables, swimming pools, tennis courts, parking lots, vehicular use areas, dumpsters, equipment storage, other open storage, buildings or awnings. So they very clearly knew there were things they did not want in a landscape buffer. A fence was not one of them. In the 2002 code, and I think it was probably brought up in the 2004, it gave you some criteria that spoke to the fences being available to protect against trespass and intrusion, and in some cases, eliminating buffers altogether. So we have impacts of development such as trespass. This is what one of the buffers would do. And then in another case, under design criteria, supplementing with a fence. So they already had this in play. And during this time period, it was not uncommon for a subdivision to get approved and the developer come in and say, okay, it's residential to residential, minimum 10-foot buffer, rock and roll. They plat the subdivision, they start building houses, and a few years later, if they were lucky, they sold out at least one whole strip, and that HOA says, we would like to put a fence up because beach boat goers are coming through, there's all this stuff going on, and they come in and they get a permission to put a fence along the perimeter of the development for the sole purpose of keeping people out of coming through yards and into their common areas and utilizing that space unwarranted and unheeded. So that's the same case. It happened quite often. In the case of preservation, they would tell you that you could not put a fence, you could put a fence through preservation if you didn't have to cut down vegetation to do it. So the reason this is important is the decision that's made here today about the location of a fence on the perimeter of the property. It impacts every subdivision in Walton County. We need to be careful how we make these decisions. I want to put that out there, that this isn't just South Walton where they got 10 units to the acre. It could be a half-acre subdivision in Freeport. It could be a 5-acre subdivision in Funiac. If you're not allowed to fence your subdivision as you need to or as you desire to, it changes the impact of the inside, the people in that subdivision. And we need to be careful about how we decide those things. On slide 13, fences are not accessory structures. It's important to know that for it to be an accessory structure on any single-family lot, you have to have a primary structure to have an accessory structure. It is not an accessory structure and therefore should not be considered that in the terms of landscape buffer doesn't allow accessory structures in them. This is a fence. It's very clearly what it is. An accessory structure is defined in the old code, and I wanted to go through that, and I don't think all of them are referenced in this document, so let me just go through these. In slide 14, when it defines fences, it speaks to a fence. Fences or hedges can be located in front, side, and rear yards. No fence or hedge shall exceed 4 feet in height when placed in the front yard. A fence it may be required for safety and protection. It talks about biohazard or other public agency may not be, this is about a height limitation, but it does recognize that one single purpose of a fence is protection and safety and to prohibit trespassing. We'll move to the definitions on slide 15. These all come from the 2002, but I think they carry over to the 2004, and if we need to, we can verify that. In particular, an accessory use structures and uses are allowed in any land use district in connection with any lawfully existing primary use. Again, this is not an accessory use. When you look at the definition of a fence, it says a freestanding structure made of metal, masonry, composition, wood, or combination thereof resting on or partially buried in the ground, rising above ground level, and used to delineate a boundary or as a barrier or means of protection, confinement, or screening. It is clear that they intended it to have both those options. The buffer is a mechanism or strategy which shields a land from potentially detrimental impacts and effects of adjacent use. And the highlighted section, the defining aspect of a buffer is its effect, not its design. Structure is a walled and roof building, this is by definition in the code, building that is principally above ground, manufactured, a gas or liquid storage tank or other man-made facilities or infrastructure. And so we can determine that while a fence is a fence, it is not a structure under the code at that time. And there's a definition of your rear yard. The last two slides that I will be speaking on, hopefully, is in 2023, I believe, I could be wrong, but in 2023, the legislature came out with property rights requirements and it was a requirement that all counties and cities and municipalities adopted a property rights element in their comprehensive plan. Malton County did so. And policy 1.1.3 states the right of real property owners to privacy and to exclude others from the property to protect the property owner's legal interests in such real property subject to applicable federal, state, and local laws.
What slide are you on?
17.
Okay.
This is a recognition of a property owner's right to protect their own property. In slide 18, you will see the same image I showed you from 5.1.10 of the image of having a fence on the property line. Screening walls, according to the code, the current code in 50109, specifically says that it may be used as an alternative to landscape buffers or to reduce the amount of landscape buffer width required. My concern is that they are not reading the full sentence and fully divesting it of its use. There are three things I want you to take from this paragraph. As an alternative to a landscape buffer, the word or, and then to reduce the width of the landscape buffer. It can be used as an alternative, or it can reduce the width. You could let it be on the perimeter and keep the landscape buffer is always an option. The determination that a perimeter fence is not allowed is illogical when we consider the current code provides both the specific language as well as images to understand that perimeter fences should be allowed.
Let's go back to 17.
Yes, sir.
You said that Walton County did adopt that?
They did adopt it. It's in the policy right now.
Where is it at?
Policy 1.1.3 in the comprehensive plan under property rights element.
When did they adopt it?
I think in 23.
When?
2023. I think it was in 23.
Okay. Go ahead.
They're like, yeah, sure, it's there. That's what counts. That's the end of my part, unless you have any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You stated that the 10-foot landscape buffer in this instance was not a part of the preservation requirement for the neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. In the letter, in the email from Stephen referencing Matt Carpenter's comments, it says a fence could be placed on the property line without preservation.
I don't know, which tab was that?
That was 27.
Oh,
it
thank
says, while generally, especially when it comes to these old subdivisions with the 10-foot on-lot buffer, without preservation in them, a fence could be placed on the property line. So it sounds like there was maybe a misunderstanding that there was preservation there, because they say in the email that with the 10-foot on-lot buffer that you could have a fence on the property line. So if that's not required preservation, it sounds...
I would agree with you, except we got a determination that it was not allowed. There is preservation in the subdivision. It's not on this lot. It's on the south side, and it's over to the east.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just to be clear, it's not just Ms. Ward's testimony that there's not preservation on the lot. That's actually, it's consideration 1 on the first page of the director's determination that we are appealing is what I read earlier, which reflects that this is not being used to satisfy any preservation, greenway, or environmental standards. It's purely a compatibility buffer. This time I would ask Paul Newman to please come up. And if you could just please introduce yourself for the board and let us know how long you've owned your current property.
I'm Paul Newman, 85 Gulfview Circle. We've been full-time residents here for 5.5 years.
If you could, just please introduce the board to how this situation with the fence first came about.
Over the years, trespassing has become more of a problem. I don't know if we're getting crazier tourists or what, I don't know, but
You are.
but we're getting teenagers like crazy, dogs with no leash on, all kind of stuff been coming through our yard and through the adjacent area, and so it's a liability for us. If you think about people sneaking in, going to our swimming pool, there's different things have happened, and so it's a problem. And since and I would never in a million years put up a fence that was not without approval. And so the board approved the fence to try to, and also at the same time, help solve this problem, because it is a problem. And so I want to emphasize that first. We would never put a fence up without approval. I mean, no, my wife and I are not those kind of people. And so since the fence has been up, we have not had one trespasser. And
Johnson, we're here on whether or not the director's determination is I agree with
Stephen, step aside. Go. I just need to, Robert, sorry. It's been a while. Go ahead.
while Mr. Newman's testimony,
Brooke,
may
you mind coming up?
at my heartstrings or not, it's nothing to do with the determination that's before you today on whether it's sufficiently grounded.
The testimony that the owner is given is that the reason for a fence granted by the association, in your opinion, is not relevant to discuss. Is that your testimony there?
That's my objection. Yeah.
Because it's your opinion that the code lies within a written document that supersedes the protection of the owner by any means. Is that correct?
Not by any means. There are certain safeguards that we can discuss, but as far as we're not here as far as discussion of the constitutional validity of what the code says and what it doesn't say, as far as what the rights that have been derived from it. That would be a totally different subject to discuss. But whether or not this director's determination was correctly grounded in a sufficient thought process, then the testimony.
I understand, but it's also whenever we look at these rules that's been adopted, that the interpretation of a director is at the best interest of the property owner. At what point did they arrive at this language? So as a board, when we look at, and I understand what you're saying, we only to look at what the code says, but at some point, does it make sense from the property owner? I mean, but you still don't agree with that.
I mean, I just objected to relevancy.
Well, I'm gonna overrule your objection. Go ahead.
you could continue and direct your testimony to the importance of the property rights that you're attempting to protect.
So my wife and I, being older people, we were concerned about our safety, and as the trespassing got worse and worse, then we went ahead and had the fence put up with the approval of the board, and the fence is on the property line, except for one small part of it is like 2 feet in the buffer zone. And the reason that is because there is a feral beehive right behind our property, right on the property line. And the workers putting up the fence could not get any closer than 2 feet to this beehive without being stung. So they just kind of came in a little bit and went around the beehive. And it's been a real miracle because my wife is extremely allergic to bee stings. I remember when we were dating, one time she got stung, and I mean, this was 54 years ago, and her foot swelled up like a watermelon and her leg swelled up, and so they have to give her shots, or she'll die if she didn't. So at certain times of the year, the bees would swarm around our house, and now not only have we don't have one trespasser, we've not seen one bee since the fence was put up. So it's been a real miracle for us for that. But we never intended to do anything wrong or cause anybody any trouble. We're just trying to protect our property. That's all.
There is a pending code case that noted some removed vegetation.
Oh, gosh, we can't wait to do that. Yeah, we'll restore the 10-foot buffer, and we'll meet all the requirements, and we'll make it beautiful. We're just waiting to get this settled so we can do that.
Thank you. Would you like to? How long's the fence been up?
It was last year, Mr. Newman.
Are you familiar with tab 28, page 21? Y'all put it in there for a reason. What is that reason?
Yes, sir. That's actually what I was about to close with. If you'd let me start on 19, however. So tab 28, slide number 19. So it's our position, as Ms. Ward testified to, that the code is actually quite clear that a fence is permitted just inside the property line in this location. However, to the extent that you believe the code is unclear, that there is an ambiguity, the law in Florida is that that ambiguity must be interpreted in favor of the property owner. The landmark case in that arena is Rinker Materials Corp. Versus North Miami from the Florida Supreme Court in 1973. The excerpt that I just read from is on tab 19, but the full case is in your notebook. And then citing to Rinker and other cases more recently on tab 20, or slide 20, Persaud Properties versus Town of Fort Myers Beach, a Second District Court of Appeals case from 2020, states, quote, since zoning laws are in derogation of the common law, as a general rule, they are subject to strict construction in favor of the right of a property owner to the unrestricted use of his property. So essentially, to the extent you believe the code is internally conflicting, we believe it is not. We believe it is clear, but to the extent you believe that, it shall be construed strictly in favor of the Newmans as the property owner in favor of their free use of land, meaning they can put up a fence and exclude others. This policy, so moving on to 21, this is where I'm emphasizing that the ability to exclude others is a well-established, well-founded property right that literally dates back to the common law of England. And so we've cited to Smith v. State, a 6th District Court of Appeal from a decision from issued a couple months ago, 2025. And Judge White, in a concurring opinion, cites to what he called, quote, centuries-old property rights law. And there's a footnote where the citation provides the authority for that. He cites first to a United States Supreme Court case, which said that the right to exclude is one of the most treasured rights of property ownership. And then he cites to Blackstone, which is English common law from the 1700s, when they were a little bit more eloquent, and stated that the sole and despotic dominion which one man claims and exercises over the external things of the world in total exclusion of the right to any other individual in the universe. So these are long-founded rights. Moving on to slide 22, these are a couple different sections of the Florida statutes. Section 82.0361, which provides a statutory remedy for removal of folks who are on your property and aren't authorized to be there. The beginning of that states, quote, "The legislature finds that the right to exclude others from entering and the right to direct others to immediately vacate residential real property are the most important real property rights." And then you heard Ms. Ward, and you asked her about this, the property rights element of the comprehensive plan. The next quotation here is from the statute that requires that to be in the comprehensive plans. So this is the state statute that required Walton County and all the other counties in the state to adopt that property rights element. 163.31776I1, in accordance with the legislative intent that governmental entities respect judicially acknowledged and constitutionally protected property rights, each local government shall include in its comprehensive plan a property rights element. A local government may adopt its own property rights element or use the following statement of rights. And this is the part of that statement. The following rights shall be considered in local decision-making. Number 3, the right of property owner to privacy and to exclude others from the property to protect the owner's possession and property. These are very fundamental interests. I understand that this is not a variance where hardship comes into it, which I believe is Ms. Davis's objection to some of the testimony. However, the testimony and why I'm reading from these property rights, it shows it is not an acceptable conclusion for folks such as the Newmans to have to cede 10 feet of their property in order to exclude people from their property. An ordinance can potentially do that, but it must be extremely clear and specific. And this land development code absolutely is not. At worst, you must construe that ambiguity in favor of the property owner. At best, which is certainly what we contend, the code is quite clear. The fence is allowed in its current location.
With the tabs 19-321 that you just stated, you still believe that the county has the right to put an ordinance that a fence can be off the boundary line if they feel for whatever reason that they're clear on it. Is that what you're saying?
We would have to know the exact language of the ordinance, but we don't dispute that the government has powers to protect the safety, security, preservation of land, and that could include regulating where structures go. That's what's in the land development code. So yes, that's correct. The contention is not that the government could never tell you where to place a fence on your property. The contention is that if the government is going to take that away from the property owner, it has to be extremely specific in the code. And this code is absolutely not extremely specific. And in fact, should be read the other way. I have nothing further unless you have further questions for me.
Well, let's hear from the county.
Thank you.
Rick Davis on behalf of the county. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just call my first witness. You've seen the writings as far as we're relying strictly on the director's determination that officially stated the position of the county, and then I provided you all a written response as well. You should have received that within your packets. So I can have Mr. Schoen for the witness stand. Schoen, can you state your name for the record?
Yeah, Stephen Schoen, Schoen. I've been sworn.
And where do you work, Mr. Schoen?
I work for the Walton County Board of County Commissioners in the Planning and Development Services Department.
Are you currently the interim planning director?
I am.
And is that how you had the opportunity to author this director's termination at issue today?
That's correct, yes.
Are you AICP certified?
I am.
At this point, we would ask that Mr. Schoen, based on stipulation from opposing counsel, he be found to be an expert in the Walton County Land Development Code, comprehensive plan, and land planning. Is that correct stipulation?
We agree.
Schoen, how does the LDC, the Land Development Code, that is, define a buffer?
I don't know the specific definition. I mean, it's essentially a mechanism that mitigates incompatible uses.
And was that the terminology that was in play at the time of this Highland Park plat creation?
Yeah, based on this this work here, yeah, it appears that that's the definition, or something to that effect was certainly in play at the time of approval, as well as today. Or which tab?
If I may, I'd like to introduce as County Exhibit 1 a copy. I know they did a different version, but a copy of the plat and just a blow up of the specific lots that we have in question in this.
Do you have enough for the board?
I do.
Hayward?
So, I think we're using numbers for the applicant, so we'll use letters. So can we'll mark this county's Exhibit A. This will be a blow up of the plat. Is that it?
The plat and a blow up from that as far as lots 3 through 10 that's really at issue today.
Did they enter their staff report?
Not yet.
Go ahead. So entered.
The staff, there's not really a staff report with this. This was a
Right.
determination. All of that was contained. So
I guess they're marking or referencing the staff report you prepared.
Tab 4.
Okay, it's already been introduced.
Yeah.
Mr. Schoen, on the plat for the Highland Park subdivision, you see there's a landscape buffer on the north end of lots 3 through 10. Is that correct? And that's the issue today.
I believe so. Well, yeah.
Why would a buffer like this exist?
Again, to help mitigate what was considered incompatible uses, densities, et cetera, at the time of approval.
And so can you explain why this isn't necessarily a continuing issue in every development we see in Walton County today?
The code has changed to require all use buffers to be located off lot. So it would be common area in any newly approved subdivision.
Are you aware whether the Newmans own the property at the time of platting, or did they acquire this at a later date?
No, I don't know. I've not reviewed that information.
In your opinion, how would a privacy fence affect the intent of a landscape buffer if it was installed exterior to that landscape buffer?
I mean, it certainly reduces the aesthetic quality. For some, anyways. That was the conclusion that I made, and part of my thinking about this.
And do you still agree with the analysis that you provided previously?
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions at this point.
No questions.
Good. Yeah. questions?
I have a question about the email.
Tab 27.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was approached by Mr. Kaufman and company to discuss this issue, after that meeting, I had come to a conclusion at that meeting that I agreed with the argument of Mr. Kaufman. I spoke with Matt Carpenter afterward, the director at the time. He informed me that he had already made a decision on this matter, and he asked me to relay that information to the applicant. I did so.
In what form did he make that previous decision? Is it written anywhere?
I don't believe it was, unless it was provided to the applicant, and it wasn't part of the packet, so I suspect it was not written written down.
Mr. Kaufman, any evidence it was written down?
Yes, I'm concerned about the inconsistency of the language where it says that the fence would be allowed if that buffer was not preservation, and so it being just the landscape buffer between subdivisions and not required for preservation. In fact, the handout that you guys provided has the required preservation hatched, and the preservation area is not along the northern property boundary between the Pines and Highland Parks. So it's clearly not a landscape buffer. It is the required 10-foot buffer between subdivisions. And so in the email, it says that you can have this fence as long as it's not preservation. And I just wonder what changed.
Time, essentially. I was posed with a direct question in my director or interim director position. I was offered the opportunity to consider the issue more, and I reevaluated my position, and that's what was reflected in the issue determination.
What do you mean by offered the opportunity to reconsider?
From my previous email.
Okay.
They formally requested a director's determination.
That's
I
correct.
think was the testimony.
And the formal request came after the email changing your previous conclusion, right?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking me.
The formal request for written statement came after?
After the initial email?
Yeah.
Email, yes, that's correct.
What was your reason for not allowing it back there?
So a number of things. Ultimately, it is a use buffer that was required at the time of development order approval. At the time, regardless of I think what is being contended by the applicant, I do not believe that a fence would be allowed in a buffer at that time. I don't think it would be allowed now, based on the language that is not, there's not a listing of prohibited structures in the buffer. There's a list of allowed structures, which to me means that if it's not provided as an allowed structure, it is prohibited. So when it doesn't call out a fence and what a use in the section that goes over the uses allowed in the buffer, it's clear to me that a fence would not be allowed within the buffer other than the alternative that I provided in my determination, where there's a reduction in the buffer width, provided you do construct a fence or a wall, and the landscaping is exterior to that wall.
You using your interpretation of the code today to interpret the mindset of the developer at the time that they wrote the buffer?
No, I reviewed the code at the time of approval. The same or very similar buffer language, use buffer language, or buffer use language was in the code at the same time.
But because it did not specify a fence could be there, it's your interpretation that they meant it couldn't be there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But it could be interpreted that it could be allowed.
It certainly could be. Yeah, my interpretation was the opposite of that.
It's my understanding that there were several fences that was allowed on the boundary line back in that day. It's my understanding that there's a lot of them in Seagrove, and there's a lot of them in all throughout South Walton. Are you familiar with those?
No, we don't permit fences, so oftentimes
so-
they're
so the
constructed
question is
outside
this.
of our code.
The question is, if it was allowed, that they've been there for several years, does that mean that they're in violation now?
Well, they
Because of
weren't-
your interpretation?
Well, they weren't technically allowed because we don't permit fences. We don't have a permit approval process for a fence. They're constructed all over the place without us even knowing it. And then code is called when it's clearly a violation of the code. If it's higher than 4 foot in the front, things like that is when we're notified of a non-compliant fence.
So a code officer could go to a fence that was built in 20, 30 years ago because it's in violation today. Y'all gonna say it's in violation, But
It
you
would
don't
be
know-
in violation of the code.
but you don't know exactly what occurred at the time in the planning department, if they allowed it or not.
If it could be demonstrated that it was allowed through the process that existed at the time, then absolutely, we
I
would
guess
let it
erecting
continue.
a fence is not demonstrating that it's allowed
An erected fence
at the time.
without demonstration that it was allowed through some process, then it was just constructed.
But you just testified there's no permit required.
That's correct. We don't have an approval process for a fence.
If I remember correctly on this, we allowed several of them back years ago that could be built on the fence. And some of them was around commercial property,
On the property line.
on the property line.
The code allows for fences to be placed on property lines. It's explicit.
But on the buffer,
In this instance, I think the buffer language takes precedence.
okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
So just to, that's all the evidence that we're going to present today. Just to give a brief closing as far as the county's perspective, Ms. Ward's testimony centered quite a bit about using the word setback and some of the setback requirements, and that the intent is clearly demonstrated because there's things that you can do in the setbacks. This is not a setback issue. This is a landscaping buffer issue that is clearly on the plat that the county has offered, that there's a 10-foot buffer, and then those setbacks that Ms. Ward has been referring to, those are inside of that 10-foot landscape buffer. So I know Mr. Kaufman touched on the idea of the right to privacy. Obviously, people breaking the law by trespassing, that's they're still breaking the law. That's not something that we're necessarily discussing today. There's criminal means to deal with people that enter your property without prior permission. I want to make sure that we're clear, though, that the right to privacy is not an unfettered right. Landowners don't have an untrammeled right to use their property. Measures designed to enhance or maintain the aesthetic appeal of a community are a legitimate exercise of a local authority's inherent police power. That's from Cuban v. City of Coral Gables. It's 62 Southern 3rd, 625. In this case,
What year was that? What year was that case?
2017.
Read that again, please.
Measures designed to enhance or maintain the aesthetic appeal of a community are a legitimate exercise of a local authority's inherent police power. I have a 2017 case that I'm going to pass out to you.
But in that case, they would be exercising language in their land development code that specifically gave them the right to exercise certain aesthetic standards, which in this case, the land development code does not give. In fact, it was interpreted the opposite of it being omitted. The fences were omitted from the language and therefore interpreted to be prohibited as such, which is counterintuitive to the Constitution.
I think we're still talking in terms of setback versus landscape buffering, because landscape buffering, the things that are allowed within the code to be within that are, it's discussing plantings and the type of plantings per 100 feet, not per property, not per landowner, it's per 100 feet. So the contiguous idea of a landscape buffer. So that's all I have at this point.
But before you sit down, it's my understanding the homeowners association agreed to have the fence. Is that correct?
I have no ability to comment on that. I'm not part of the HOA. I don't represent the HOA.
So there's testimony that the homeowners association allowed to have the fence because of protection of their property. And I'm concerned that the county is taking the position that you can put the fence 10 foot off, that's where y'all want it, so people can walk anytime they want to, do whatever they want to on that 10 acres, and you're prohibiting that property owner the right to fence that off to protect their property. Is that your testimony?
The county is not agreeing that anybody is allowed to break the law. We're not saying that anybody has the right to be on anybody else's property. It's just we're enforcing that this is a 10-foot landscape buffer. The code does allow at this point for, as you can see in the director's determination, that buffer can be reduced to up to 5 feet with some type of a screening wall. We did within that determination reflect that also could include a wooden privacy fence.
Are you familiar with tab 21 that they handed out, that the judge says that the right to exclude is one of the most treasured rights, and if they want to build a fence, they should have the right? And I just wondered the position of county to allow a code that does not protect all of the property that the owner owns. I mean,
I don't see that in tab 21.
28.
I do agree that
28, page 21.
I do agree that people have the right to protect their property. In this instance, we are talking about a platted landscape buffer. You heard from Mr. Schoen that the difference nowadays, the code requires that these landscape buffers are not on-lot buffers. These are now common area. So that's where there's now been a change that we see.
So if it was a common area, he could put his fence up on his
property line.
On the property line.
Right.
In the code today.
Right.
But because you have the determination by the director that his opinion 20 years ago that doesn't apply.
I'm sorry. As far as interpreting the code from
Wouldn't it
20
be
years ago?
easy to interpret the code that since it's allowed today to put the fence on the property line, that to allow the people to put the fence on the property line, even though there's a buffer today, a buffer 20 years ago, that you don't know what the indetermination of the director that at that time that allowed a lot of fences to be put up?
We're not taking any position on what's been done or hasn't been done. As Mr.
We're
Schoen
not taking a
explained,
position, but we taken
many fences have been installed without.
We've taken the director's interpretation that could very well say today, because if we changed it, that they could take and put it on the boundary line. He don't know what the definition of, what the interpretation of the director 20 years ago that would allow a fence to be put on the boundary line in that buffer, because there's no language that says you can't.
I would agree that if it would have been spelled out a little more clearly in the plat, that would have been nice, of explaining whether this landscape buffer is dedicated to the public or something. It would have been nice to have a little more in that area.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Anyone that has anything to add? Come up and state your name for the record.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. John Disharoon, Disharoon. I'm president of the Highland Parks HOA and a member of our Architectural Review Committee. And really what I want to talk to you about tonight is consistency. The Newmans have done nothing wrong. They applied to the Architectural Review Committee to build a fence to protect their property from trespassing and the bees. The Architectural Review Committee checked with our counsel, Robert Kaufman, and said, hey, any issue putting a fence up on our property lines here? Because we do have preservation areas in the development, and there are some restrictions on fences. We have a bad neighbor on the other side of the fence who not only threatened the Newmans, but also threatened the HOA and said, I've got an easement, you can't put a fence up to block me from coming on your property. Mr. Kaufman researched and found there were no easements that were not owned by anybody other than Highland Parks, and that, yes, we had a right to put the fence up. This guy tore out landscaping, put bricks down, put an indoor-outdoor carpeting from his property to Highland Park so he could walk our paved streets, use our pool, and let his dogs run free. It was a harassment, and he threatened the Newmans. We said we don't want trespassing in Highland Parks. You have a right to put a fence up. Go ahead and build it. While you're doing that, we're going to put a fence on the HOA property immediately adjacent to yours, where the dead-end street is that gives them, the Newmans, access to their driveway. We hired the fence company. The fence company came in, built the fence. The guy barked the entire time. He threatened the contractor. He made him stop construction. The contractor came back and said, look, he's saying I don't have a right to put the fence up. He's threatening me. I don't want to work in a hostile environment. You guys work this out. We went back to Robert and said, hey, Mr. Kaufman, do we have a right to put this fence up? He said, absolutely you do. We told the contractor to continue. The bad neighbor, threatening again, said, hey, I know people in the county. I know a judge. I know the planning director. We'll get this fence taken down. In the whole time this fence is being built, the county came out, approved the landscape buffer that the Newmans were rebuilding, approved the plants. They bought the plants. They approved the placement of the plants, never said anything about the location of the fence. We got an email from Mr. Schoen saying, okay, fence can go there, do it. Mr. Newman shared that with me. I said, this is great. Proceed. I go on a fishing trip and come back, and there's another email that says I rescind my previous direction. I think you guys have got that email. What absolutely baffles me is there are 6 other houses immediately adjacent to the Newmans down that same block that have fences on the property line that the county has approved, that the county came in, maybe not approved the fences, but they approved the landscape buffer and the plants that they planted after the fence was put in. So we have 4 other fences on that property line, the edge of Highland Parks, on the same street as the Newmans, back on the property line. The property immediately adjacent to the Pines has their fence on the property line, and the HOA fence is on the property line. And now they're telling us that the Newmans has to come in 10 feet to be inconsistent with every other fence on that side of the street? Doesn't make sense. We had approval from the HOA. We had approval from the ARC. We researched it legally. We gave him guidance to build the fence. He built the fence. No more bees, no more trespassers. Beautiful fence. I got a copy. I have a picture of the fence I can show you on my phone. I didn't print it out. It's an attractive fence. The bad neighbor on the other side posted signs facing Highland Parks saying no trespassing. Leave my bees alone. We pulled those signs up. They were on our property. If he was concerned about us trespassing into the Pines, he should be elated that there's a fence there and we can't go back there. This just defies common sense to make the Newmans move their fence. They're going to put a landscape barrier in. It's already there. They're going to add a few more plants. They ought to be able to enjoy that landscape buffer on their property. They're taking up 10 feet of their property for a landscape buffer, but have their fence on the property line congruent with the rest of the fences on that side of the property. I think it's common sense, and I'd imply you guys to think about that.
Thank you very much for coming. Anyone have any questions?
Briefly, Chairman, I would close by saying I think the evidence in the testimony, I believe, has been pretty clear that at worst, the Land Development Code is extremely vague about what is or is not allowed. We believe it's actually pretty clear that it is, but at worst, it's extremely vague. That point is proven, I would say, more so than by any other reason by the email in tab 27, where Mr. Schoen's original interpretation was that the fence was permitted. We agree with him. We believe that his initial interpretation was correct. But at worst, that it clearly indicates that even a well-qualified professional, the deputy planning director was his title at the time he issued that opinion, could find that the code allows this type of fence. So we are squarely in that Rinker case from the Florida Supreme Court. To the extent you believe there is doubt, it must be construed in favor of the property owner to protect all these valuable property rights that we've been talking about this evening. I'll close with that, unless you have any further questions for me.
I don't, but I was hoping that when Matt Carpenter retired, that there would not be interpretations and then change interpretations. When a director make an interpretation, be it right or be it wrong, I think you need to stick with it, because it's from someone that has to take and deal with interpretations, and then like they say, you have an interpretation that you made, and then you made an interpretation that you done differently when it's not. Yeah, I'm going to give you the opportunity, but you don't know the intent 20 years ago. You don't know what the director was at the time. And it'd be nice to get a little consistency in the planning department instead of being negative about everything that happens in Walden County, that there be a little positive here when you have the right to make a determination that would be favorable. So go ahead.
So a couple things, I guess. So just approaching the initial decision or determination, it was around a table. I didn't have time to mull over any sort of decision I was going to make. I gave them the direction at that table based on what I was presented with. Unfortunately, I didn't have the ability to make that decision entirely by myself at that time. Once presented with an official determination, I was able to review the code at the time, the current code, and what I believe I can do in line with the current code and what was in play at the time. Believe me, I wish there was more clarity there. I wish I could have cited and given this guy his 10 or 5 feet even, but I couldn't get there. So that's where we are today, good or bad or in between.
If you could have got there, what would have been the consequences? As Matt Carpenter says, I have the right to make determination, and then nobody has the right to dispute it. So if you would have said, okay, I have the right to determine that there's other fences in the area. Today, we don't have to deal with that, so there's a mistake with the county from adopting to start with, so they corrected it. You can put it on the line now. What would have hurt if you would have made the decision to do that?
We could very well be in the same position we are today from a different owner that abuts the site. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then we do appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board to address this issue. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Motion to close the public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion. We have the appeal of the director's determination. We need to have a motion to uphold the appeal, or we need a motion to deny the appeal.
I'd like to make a motion to whatever we have to do to let the man keep his fence.
So you make a motion to to approve the appeal.
Make a motion to approve the appeal.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
To me, it just doesn't make sense to have a fence 10 side in a buffer zone, like they've said. You walling it off where the people can trespass back there just freely, and that just don't even make walking around sense to me. And there's testimony here that there's other fences, 4 or 5 right there on that same corridor that are in line with what this guy's fence is. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I agree 100%. When you own the property, you should have a right to defend all of your property. And I personally think there's an overstep from the county to restricting the use of your 10 feet. And I think the tab 28, page 12, Smith versus State of Florida is a very good one that the court upheld. But I agree with you 100%, Mrs. Story.
I mean, I agree. I think the one thing I want to make certain that we do is it looks like because we have a de novo review, we need to make sure that we've said whether or not they've bore the burden of proving by the applicable standard. And so I think in this case, at least what the record needs to be clear on is that we did make a determination based on the preponderance standard of, competent and substantial evidence. And so I think that's one thing that's important to me. I'm still thinking about how to do it. But I think the other problem I have here is the consistency issue. I mean, the first opinion wasn't written down. So it doesn't exist at that point because anyone can say anything. And if it's not written down, then the first instance was the approval, and whether it should or shouldn't have been made at the roundtable discussion, I think that raises a reliance instance issue. And in this case, I think that the people of the county should be entitled to rely upon the information that they're given. And I think in instances where there's any undermining towards that reliance interest, it should be construed in favor of the citizen and against the county. I think that's equitable, but I also think that's kind of in line with our traditional constitutional decorum. And so I think for all of those reasons, I think that they have shown by the relevant burden of proof that the appeal should be approved and that the previous decision should be overturned. And so that's going to be my position.
I remember when you was bashful. Now see you're comfortable in your skin. So good for you. Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't have anything else to add.
Charlie?
I think that the county should allow you to fence your property. In most cases, I do believe they have the right to exclude it in some rare instances, but they should tread very lightly when they try to do that against the property owner. I think making the buffers not part of the property is a good idea. But then still there's going to be other people that are going to want to fence their property. They should probably try to clarify it in the code if they want to make that determination, make it official and go through the county commissioners. But ultimately, I think there's too much ambiguity in the code that you'd have to, as he said, err on the side of the applicant.
Err on the side of property rights.
On the property rights side, yes.
There's a number of fences been built back in the 2000 and 1990s, 2000 on the, and it came before us. It's done. It's a history. I hate to see the county continue to change the code. What used to be approved is now then a violation that can be a code violation and an harassment. So I agree with the property rights. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You received your appeal. Was upheld. That statute on Smith versus the state, I wonder, on the homeowners association, there's a move to take away homeowners associations in the state of Florida. I wonder at what point. And even the state of Florida, the legislature this last time, because they say because of the storms, the legislature had legislation that the county could not restrict the property owners by more rules and regulations. You know what I'm talking about. They just, and that's up to what 5 years that's gonna take effect, and a lot of them say, well, that mess up home rule. But I think the whole point of it is that there's too much regulations by the government, so it'd be interesting to see what point does that, are you leaving us? But it's interesting to me to see if the legislature continue this trend, that they're beginning to continue with the homeowners association overstating property rights. And hopefully, the determination will be more favorable on the property rights. Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Yeah, this is longer than the last one.